Hello. Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm head of social at Red Brick Road.
And I'm Lily, social media director at Red Brick Road.
I'm going to start with a top tip and a bit of an apology. And that top tip is do not sign up for MadFest the day after you get back from Glastonbury. So I am going to have to keep my glass of water up here, so thank you for that.
I didn't even know she'd been to Glastonbury. She's not mentioned it.
Oh, yeah, shut up. So do we have some slides up on here? Yes, we do. Excellent. So we are here on behalf of one of our wonderful clients, which is Treasury Wines. And so we are going to be talking to you about wine. Now, for anybody that might have gone a bit heavy on day one of MadFest, this might conjure up images of regret. But for most of you, I hope there's some other thoughts when you think of wine. And those are probably something like tasting notes. They might be notes of cherry or vanilla or wet leather books in the rain or whatever comes to mind when you think of wine. It could be grapes and vineyards and vintages and soil types that you might get. It could also be awards. It could be sommeliers. It could be those silly people that spit it out into buckets. Or it may just be your mum with a picky tea in the garden on the other end of the spectrum. If, however, you are from the younger generations, you might not be thinking about wine at all. We've recently done a study at Red Brick Road, which was named Please Drink Joyfully, and it was all around the drinking behaviours of Gen Z. And in that, we found that actually only 21% of millennials are drinking wine, and actually it goes as low as 5% for Gen Z. So what we really need to think about is how do we start to get the younger generations interested in wine. And for them, if we start to talk about these areas, tasting notes, they're boring. Vineyards, vintages, it's too complicated. If we start to look at awards, we start to go in snobbery, it's elitism, and it just isn't brand me. And especially when we start to look into social media, all of these things are not what you want to be when you're starting to go into social media. Because you're not just competing with your other wine competitors, you're competing with your friends' photos, you're competing with cute dogs, you're competing with all of the reel after reel from Glastonbury. So that's the problem that Treasury came to us with. So we've got the same problem. We want to make sure that we can get younger generations thinking about wine, drinking wine. But we've got two very different brands and two very different ways of doing it. So we're going to take you through how we do it for both of these brands.
So, starting with Squealing Pig, which might not necessarily be a brand you're aware of unless you're a big Sauvignon Blanc drinker, because we are quite new in the market in the UK. So our goal here is to make sure that we're increasing familiarity, particularly with ambitious, style-conscious millennials, and making sure that we're bringing cultural relevance through in everything that we do. And how that translates into social is we really want to harness the power of what we're calling piggy positivity and making sure that we're helping our audience feel free, whether that's through wine and in life, and letting them know that they don't necessarily have to settle for boring. So as you can see, we've been busy. We've created quite a lot of content from a really wide range. And what we've been doing when we've been implementing our strategy is we developed this specific framework for Squealing Pig, which we've been using. And these 7 considerations have been at the forefront of everything that we've been doing. So we've been thinking content or entertainment first. We've been thinking about what our audience needs and interests are. We've been looking to collaborate with brands and influencers. We've been nurturing our existing community. We've been making sure that we found our unique USP and we're always being ourselves. We've started to rethink branding because branded assets don't necessarily need to be boring. And also one of the big important things for us is making sure that we're in step with culture. So I'm going to take you through a few examples of some specific posts and parts of these that we've been producing recently. So Squealing Pig, thankfully, makes our life a little bit easier because we have a really fantastic brand persona. We're all about being free and uninhibited, and it means that when it comes to thinking entertainment first, we have a little bit more freedom and we can be quite creative with how we choose to promote our product and raise awareness and do things a little bit differently. So something that's really relevant within our audience is Hinge. Dating apps. There's a lot of content and trends on social at the moment, which we took inspiration from and used some typical kind of dating tropes, man with fish on dating app, and things like that to create this really fun, genuinely quite amusing asset that also helped us tell everyone what our product's about, talk about Squealing Pig, but also show a little bit of our brand persona and jump into a conversation that our audience is already having. And then next up, we have an example of how we approach culture. So when I say culture, it's not just a case of pop culture and what's going on, what's trending. It's also the time of year and what our audience is doing. So with our audience, because we are a kind of millennial-leaning brand, the people we're looking to talk to and our core audience aren't necessarily people that would consider a sunny spring day as an excuse to go on a wild night out. They're not quite devotedly tending to their gardens, but they are somewhere in the middle. So for them, a sunny spring day most likely means grabbing a decent bottle of wine, some posh picky bits from M&S or something, and going out with some friends to enjoy being outside. So we decided to take the occasion of socializing al fresco and give it a little bit of a piggy twist. Unfortunately, we don't have emergency supplies of Sauvignon Blanc laying around, but it would be great if we did. Maybe it's something in the future. And then we also created these really great picnic kits. Next up is an example of some of the partnerships we've been doing. So as someone whose background is very rooted in influencer specifically, I'm very passionate about the fact that I think for brands in kind of emerging markets, somewhere where you're still trying to establish your name against the bigger hitters, partnerships are really vital to making sure that you're expanding your audience, you're reaching new people, and also getting yourself more credibility by aligning with people that your audience are already looking at. So we've been doing this for a lot of branded collaborations. We've done a lot of giveaways, competitions, which have been really successful. But the example I've pulled out here is a really nice example of one of the influencer collaborations we did. Predominantly, we work with comedy and recipe creators at the moment because a big thing for us is making sure that our content is really native, feels really authentic. And this is a really lovely example from Nell's Kitchen, who is very well known for really mouth-watering, delicious sandwich videos, normally with crisps, and she really seamlessly integrated Squealing Pig into her content. And then last up in our examples is Squeals of Joy. So this asset is something that is very prevalent in how we choose to approach branding as Squealing Pig. So rethinking branding is something really important to us because it's something that a lot of people find quite hard to integrate and find the balance on social, where we're told all the time people don't respond and don't engage well with branded assets, and it can be really hard when you're going with an organic first approach. But what we've chosen to do, and what we strive to do with all of our clients, but especially with Squealing Pig, is just make sure that when we are including branding, that personality comes through, because at the end of the day, we need it in there. You're never going to be at the forefront of consumers' minds if you don't have a really clear branding, if people don't see our content and know instantly it's Squealing Pig. So for us, a lot of the time, this plays into how we use our titles and our graphic elements and how they animate. For example, we have our pig bouncing in. Sometimes it includes examples like the first frame of this, where we sneak little flying pigs into the clouds and references like that. And then for product, it can sometimes just be, we chuck a bottle of wine in the air and see where it lands. And then lastly, on Squealing Pig, obviously, I'm hoping you've seen all the content, you think it's amazing, outstanding, inspired, and you can't wait to go look at it properly yourselves. But the most important thing, obviously, is the impact it's had, and we're really proud of the results we've had so far working with Squealing Pig. So on Instagram, we've had a 211% uplift in followers since we started working together and implementing the strategy. We've also had a 90% uplift in monthly engagement, and then in the UK, we are proud to say we are now ranking as the 9th top-selling New Zealand savvy bee, and fingers crossed we'll keep going up. So we can't wait to see what happens next.
And then we turn to the dark side, that is 19 Crimes. It's the very opposite side. So for those who don't know 19 Crimes was born from the list of 19 crimes of which you could get exiled from the UK to Australia for. And our bottles have some of the famous criminals on front of them. So we very much are the epitome of rebellion, which is great fun to work on. So we know from what we said previously, so our core audiences, which we call experience maximizers and lifestyle prioritizers, we know that they're not interested in wine, but they are very much rooted in culture. And so what we don't want to do is we're not trying to drag them over to like our wine. We're trying to find ways to take our wine into their world. So how can we align with culture? How can we make sure that we are behaving in the ways that they are actually interested in and making content that's interesting to them? And so we are very much, quite literally, taking the preface of what would another wine brand do? Let's do the complete opposite. So let's have a look at some of that work. So at Red Brick Road, we always take a core creative idea, which we call red thread thinking. And when it comes to 19 Crimes, we have an amazing opportunity here with the break convention line. And so we literally are trying to look for what the conventions are and break them. And so that comes as 3 core ones that we saw in here. One of those was around moments and how we can take unconventional moments and opportunities. And what we've done in there would be Halloween. Now, Halloween, especially amongst its target audience, is massively growing in popularity, whether that's for parties or dressing up, but it's not being, currently, it's not being owned by many brands, and especially not being owned by many brands in this space. So whilst other brands are kind of starting to prep for Christmas, they've got their mulled wine and their choir singers out on the streets. We took to the streets instead and took to the station pianos and played scary theme tunes from scary movies. We took influencers out to start getting dressed up too early into the supermarkets. And we created a whole tribe of our very own hair wolves from our demon barbershop, where we were shaving the labels into the chests of our unwitting participants. So this was all around how can we take our own moment and extend it and kind of own it, so it's no longer Halloween, it's Halloweek. We're making our own moment while everybody else is waiting for Christmas. The next opportunity is taking more of an expected moment, which we have with this Valentine's. Valentine's wine seems very to go hand in hand. But we're looking at that, how do we then stand out? And that is to do it in an unexpected way. So we've got no steak dinners for 2. We've got no bunches of roses. We are very much celebrating unconventional relationships. So we worked with a contemporary poet to take some of traditional Shakespeare and other love poems, and we turned them and we rewrote them for unconventional relationships. We got polyamory, we got thruples. We took to the streets to ask people and challenge them on what they knew about modern dating. And the answer is not a lot. But it's really about how can we use our bottles for gifting and gifting differently and really celebrating the unconventional people amongst us. And then finally, it's around looking at unconventional behaviors as well. So for this audience, mostly when it comes to summertime, they're turning to the ciders, they're talking to beers, they're talking to turn into these new cocktail tins. So how do we play in that space? Because we are not a pink tin and a picnic basket in the summer in what we're doing. We want to think differently. We want to behave more like a beer brand. So we are aligning ourselves with cooler festivals, being outdoors, cooler people. How can we just behave differently, aligned to music, and then that kind of music scene? So very much looking at unconventional moments, unconventional ways, and unconventional behaviors that we can tap into. And these are just some of our results. This is based on the last 8 months that we've been working with 19 Crimes. We've had a 70% uplift in our reach. Probably the most impressive one around is a 202% uplift in the views of the content, just showing that the content that we're putting out there is actually something people want to stop and watch. And then, more importantly, that 94% engagement. So this is amongst the target audiences that we want to be. So we've got the right people engaging, and hopefully those numbers will only continue to grow as we do. So whether you're kind of looking at both those brands, you see the two very different brands, two quite different approaches. We've got a very organic strategy. It's really fun and joyful and bright, and a very much a kind of owning of kind of alternative moments and creating our own space. But I think very much in line with the theme of today and the theme of MadFest, the ultimate is just be less boring. We're going to invite Matt and Megan up from Treasury Wines. And if anyone's got any questions they want to ask us or them about the brand, goes ahead.
So no one's actually posted them on the app, but I'm going to free fall and jump over. So if anyone has any burning questions for Red Brick or Treasury Wines, please let me know, and I'll jump over. Oh, perfect. There you go.
Hi, I come from a long line of alcoholics. I don't drink very much myself, but obviously, I mean, all the language is very fun, but it's quite a dangerous thing. How do you deal with that?
So we work very closely day to day with the ASA. So anything we create, anything we goes out, every piece of copy is run past them. So we have a really good relationship with them. We make sure that we as teams are experts in what we can and can't do. We make sure we have training and everything like that. But every single thing we put out is always run past them to sense check, and we're always very careful. So there's a lot of things we can't do where we can't suggest that alcohol makes anyone more attractive. We can't show excessive drinking. Everyone who ever stars in any of our content has to be very clearly over 25, even if it's a vox pop. And there are a lot of precautions that we have to take.
But it is a fine line, especially when your brand name is 19 Crimes as well. So it's definitely a fine line we tread.
So you push it as far as you can, basically?
As far as we possibly can. It's the aim of the game.
Are there any kind of ethical considerations with that?
I think we do everything we can not to promote overconsumption. For us, we take occasions where people are already drinking. We try to promote safe drinking, doing it in small doses. But if you are going to drink, you may as well drink one of our products. But it's definitely something that we're always considering in what we do.
I think it's an attitude as well, and aligning to culture. So we're aligning to music and art and fashion. So it's more about finding those cultural moments to associate the brand rather than necessarily rebellious drinking.
Cool. We have one more question. Go for it.
Hi. I'm quite interested that you've tried to break away from convention with both of the wines and sort of abandon all of the things that are perceived as stuffy. But I noticed that you stick with varietal names as well. Why haven't you abandoned varietal naming? Why does anyone care that it's a Sauvignon Blanc and not just a generic white wine?
For the varietal names, it's more because that's what people know of wine is. So it's let people into the wine category, and then we do it in a different way in terms of how you consume it and the joyfulness of it. But the varietal names, don't think they're going to go anywhere. That is what the wine is. So we do have it for 19 Crimes, and I can pass it over to Matt, but we do have the red blend. So that is kind of like a blend, which is a increase in terms of the category, in terms of people wanting to find that as well. So that's a kind of different way, and we call our Chardonnay the Shard. So that's just pretty much how we can do it, is from a sort of wine and also from a product lens as well.
Yeah, I think just on that obviously we still need people to buy our wine, so they need to be easily findable in store. So, but hopefully what you can see from the campaigns that Red Brick put together is we're trying to make ourselves culturally relevant, or just relevant specifically to our target consumer. So as mentioned, we're thinking about it ethically, but we're also trying to make sure that whenever you see an image or a video with our can, with our bottle, with a glass, it's around something that they're doing in their day-to-day lives. So again, and the good point mentioned there is nothing you see there is like wine tasting, because that's not really what our target consumer does. It's about making sure that we're specifically culturally relevant and relevant to our target market, and where they're drinking canned wine, we want to make sure we're showing content that's relevant to us.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Oh, yeah.
And just one thing before we go as well. So Treasury Wine Estates, we've got various brands, Squealing Pig and 19 Crimes being the ones that we presented today. But we're also the official wine sponsors of MadFest. So there is a treasury hunt going on just now across the festival and tomorrow. And if you go to our bars, you can scan the QR code to enter into winning a year's supply of free wine. But as you're all here, you're already entered. If you scan the QR code on the app, it's on the More app and the Game Centre, scan this and then you automatically get entered into chance of winning a year's supply of wine. And it'll be a mix of our wines as well to enjoy across the year. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.